When you shuffle a 52 card deck, you arrange it in one of 8 times 10 to the 67th ways. That's 80 unvigintillion completely unique configurations. The odds of matching someone else's shuffle are so infinitesimal as to not exist. Apply that to a 78 card deck, and you get some truly improbable numbers. This is Playing the Magician, part 1 of a series on tarot in role-playing games. Why would you choose to integrate a tarot deck into your game? Well, maybe you're seeking to lend an arcane aesthetic. Maybe you're interested in the interwoven matrix of meaning that a given deck holds in its iconography and hierarchy. Maybe you want a piece of that infinitely random action. Maybe you want the continually self-limiting palette of probability that comes with a decreasing deck. Maybe you want the social weight a tarot deck holds, and want to relish in the tension of drawing and flipping a card. The kinesthetic feeling of drawing a card is different from rolling dice or choosing an option off a pick list. With dice, it's possible to get 2 of the same result, either at the same time from 2 different dice, or twice in a row from the same die. Not so with a given card deck, unless you shuffle 2 decks together, or shuffle a card back into a deck especially poorly. Consider the experiential difference between choosing from a set of rolled dice, choosing from a spread of shuffled cards, or choosing from a pre-written pick list. Each has its strengths and drawbacks, and it's just about deploying them in the context of your choice to convey a mechanical feeling. But I'm not here to talk about dice or pick lists. Let's get into the anatomy of a tarot card. Front and back. This seems obvious. Of course there's a front and back, what's the value in that? But cards have the ability to give you a random hidden result, and stay hidden, like a GM rolling dice behind a screen. Cards can face the player and be only known to one person, or they can face the table and be unknown to the player holding them. They can stay face down on the table until the time is right to reveal their secret. Because it has 2 opposite sides, a card can be used as a binary toggle or token to indicate whether a given mechanic is activated or deactivated, red or blue, whatever's 2 states you need to track. Paper. Anything you can do with paper, you can do with a card. Mark them up, cut them, lace them together, fold them, punch holes in them, dog-ear them, put stickers on them, use them as bookmarks, throw them, lick them and stick them to your forehead. These options might seem disrespectful, and many of them are irreversible, but at the end of the day, a deck is just paper, and game sessions that create artifacts of play are fun and cool. There's also a sense of transgression when you modify or damage a card, especially a tarot card, that is very potent. A card is stiffer than printer paper, and it's got an edge that it can stand on if it's held or leaning against something else. This is a delicate state, but sometimes you have a delicate mechanic to convey. Vertical orientation. An average tarot card has a clear upright and an inverse. That is to say, it is pointing in one clear direction, like an arrow. So you can use it to orient or indicate a direction up or down, right or left, tapped or untapped. The direction a card is facing can indicate the meaning of it, like in tarot reading. It can also indicate whose turn it is, or a stage positioning like a minifigure might. You could string cards together to indicate a path across a map. The number. I'll use this to talk about 2 different things, as the word is ambiguous enough for me to get away with it. There's the numeral written on the card from 0 to 21 in the major arcana, and from ace to king in the minor. There's a clear hierarchy in both arcana you can take advantage of, and a spread of different results you can measure and quantify against each other. You can add them, subtract them, multiply or divide them, any kind of math you want to do, you can do it, more or less. There's also the quantity of cards available. You have 78 cards in a standard tarot deck, which is divided into 1 set of 22 and 4 sets of 14. You can use all 78, shuffle them back into the deck for reuse, divvy them up however you wish, use stacks or hands as counters to limit moves or track time, all kinds of stuff. The deck. A deck contains a near-infinitely random sequence whose presentation can radically change the experience of interacting with it. Consider how it feels to choose from a fan of cards versus drawing from the top of the deck, versus choosing from a spread on the table. All are effectively the same random result, but the feeling can be very different. Choosing from the top of the deck has a feeling of spontaneity akin to rolling a die, but flipping a card that's been placed on the table feels more predetermined. And of course, choosing from a fan of cards has an element of showmanship to it. The suit. Tarot has 5 suits: coins or pentacles, wands or staves, swords, cups, and major arcana. The major arcana traditionally trump the other 4 suits, but they don't have to. You have 4 themed categories to sort and define and do with as you wish. The imagery. This will vary wildly from deck to deck. There are sometimes through lines, but you can't count on it. If you want to call on specific iconography, you'll have to qualify what deck you want the player to use, which you can do, especially if it's widely used like the Smith-Waite deck is. Or you can design and provide your own deck, which I obviously encourage. You can mine the image of a card literally, like this queen has a sword, therefore so do I, or you can interpret it however you want, like she's not dressed for combat, but she's holding a sword, so I can infer that my character is new to violence as a solution, or something like that. That's what an individual card has to offer. A tarot deck features both a 22-card major arcana and a minor arcana of 4 suits of 14 cards each. Each has their pros and cons in design and in use at the table. Let's start with the major arcana. Pros. Systems of meaning. As a scientist, I would be completely fixated on whether or not something is applicable to reality. With that in mind, tarot, astrology, numerology, I believe in our ability to find and construct patterns more than I believe that the patterns are really there. As a game designer, I am much less interested in whether a system of meaning is true to reality, and much more interested in whether it's coherent, self-perpetuating, and outputs a decipherable result. I'm also interested in where it has friction, and how it breaks, because all systems designed by people can be broken. That said, the tarot, as designed by A.E. Waite and Pamela Colman Smith, comes out of the syncretic tradition of the Golden Dawn, an occult society they were both in. That means that you get a lot of syncretic synthesis of different systems from astrology and numerology to Hermeticism and Kabbalah. I'm more likely to play with astrology and numerology than Hermeticism or Kabbalah because Hermeticism is syncretism at its core, pulling from a whole slew of different traditions and calling them the same thing, which I don't care for. And Kabbalah is Jewish mysticism, and I am not Jewish. Well, my mother is, kind of, on her father's side. Listen, my heritage may be ambiguous, but I was raised Christian, and I don't want to repeat the crimes of my forefathers if I can help it. Anyway, the major arcana has in it the symbols of astrology, which is a self-referential system. By that I mean each symbol has a relationship to the other symbols, neighbors and opposites and foils and deuteragonists, and so on and so forth. So if you have 2 cards, you can chart the relationship between them the same way you would chart 2 people's astrological signs. Numerology is similar. Things add up to numbers, things subtract leaving numbers, things contain other numbers, things are divisible by other numbers, and because numbers are attached to specific images in the major arcana, you can retrieve a meaning from any number that resolves into 0 to 21. Contains story arcs. There are a fair number of stories told with the major arcana, depending on who you ask, but one in particular that would make for an interesting story at the table is the growth cycle of a human psyche. I'll get into this in detail in a later video, but the gist of it is, we set Zero the Fool aside, as he represents the willingness to engage, which is the essential buy-in you need to tell the story in the first place. Then we go from 1, the magician, to 7, the chariot, as growing up through the structure of a society to the first victorious display of mastery. 8, strength, to 14, temperance, is seeking understanding of the self, and 15, the devil, to 21, the world, is seeking spiritual understanding of both the self and the world the self is part of. Split that into character creation, individualized personal quests, and a united world quest, and you've got a campaign laid out. That's a clumsy analog, but I bet it would still work. It might be kind of a heady, philosophical time, but there are definitely tables that are hungry for that. Cons. Very few bad cards. You can make the argument that the inverse of any given card is worse than the upright, but most of the major arcana are expressing neutral or positive concepts. The big exceptions are Death, the Devil, the Tower, the Hanged Man, and, let's say, the Moon and Judgment. And yes, I know you can interpret any card as a positive thing. I mean, these on their face can be read as negative. That's 6 cards out of 22, so you have a 27% chance of getting a negative result from the Major Arcana. Compare that with rolling a d20, where you have a 50% chance of rolling 10 or below, or rolling 2d6 in a Powered by the Apocalypse game, where 6 and below is usually judged a failure and 7 to 9 is a partial success, giving you a 42% chance of getting a negative result. The Major Arcana was not designed to be a fair arbiter of success or failure, so it isn't one. Then of course there's the Minor Arcana. Pros. Pretty playing card deck. Each of the 4 suits has ace to 10, a page, a knight, a queen, and a king. So you can do most anything you can do with a standard playing card deck, but prettier. You can play any card game with it. You don't have to use any of the divinatory elements at all if you don't want to, but you can also use the card games as an elaborate, ever-changing spread to build meaning. That is, if you know all the meanings. Specific and banal. Where the Major Arcana are all big life events and revelations, the Minor Arcana are all petty, personal, everyday problems and triumphs. I once read a guide that assigned a Minor Arcana card the meaning, "Go check the oil in your car." This is a great way to characterize a given scenario, whether that's scene setting, flavor on a success or failure, or an action a character is taking. Cons. There's a ton of cards. Goodness, but there's a lot of meanings to learn. Some decks are more helpful with their narratives than others. You can certainly streamline it by declaring for yourself what each suit means, and using the numbers as a grade of intensity or success or whatever you want, but that's technically not tarot as written by Smith and Waite. But honestly, who cares? Get silly with it. Why not? Smith and Waite are dead. It's your deck now. An aspect of a deck of cards that is not present in dice is the need to reset, shuffle, sort, and handle the deck consistently through the game. This, I think, is neither a pro nor a con, but just an aspect of playing with cards that is worth thinking about. There's a declaration of intention, a display of care, almost a ritualistic component to the time it takes to reset and shuffle a deck that dice simply do not require. This, of course, is not an exhaustive catalog of mechanical potential. I am but one designer, and my experience is limited by time and space. If you know of an aspect I missed, or have ideas about potentials not covered by this video, weigh in down in the comments. I would love to hear about it, and I'm sure others would too.